Good evening and welcome to the Mark Schaftlein Report. I'm your host tonight, Joe Visconti, standing in for Mark, and we've got a really great guest. Someone I think you guys are really going to like. Someone you haven't seen before. He's Kevin Allen from Connecticut. He is the Connecticut Cowboy, although I'm wearing the cowboy hat today. So let's bring him right on and let's get going here with some really great breaking news and commentary. Kevin,
Hey,
how
what's
are you?
going on? Good, Joe. How are you, man? It's been a while.
It has been a while. We kind of get on each other's shows, but today I
Hmm.
was like, I think I'm gonna call Kevin and see where the heck he is. And I tried to reach out
Thank
to your
you.
producer, Mark
Thank you.
Vesco, but I forgot he's been texting me from Sorrento, Italy.
Yeah, that's right. He's
Here he is.
overseas. He's living the life, but you got a hold of me. Thank you, and we're honored to be on the show with you.
Oh, thanks so much. So let's catch up on what you've been up to before we get into a lot of the topics and things that the audience is going to like to hear from our perspective behind enemy lines in a blue state.
Yes, of course. So being in Connecticut, being a former state representative here in Connecticut, the 45th House rep, actually the same year that the greatest president in my life that served, Donald Trump, the 45th president, was elected. I was elected to the state house here. I've been in politics, 6 years total, two different terms as first electman, like a mayor, and then eventually went on and said, I need to get into political rehab. This is killing me because you can't get nothing done behind the curtain, as we know. It's a battlefield of sludge. And so I decided to get into the podcast world. And over the last 4+ years, I've been doing like you, Joe, just plugging away, building a platform, the CT Cowboy, the Kevin Allen Show, traveling the country, meeting really amazing people. And yes, covering those hard topics that you and I are going to jump into is, I guess it's my pastime. It's my fun. So I love having that discussion about anything that's going on current, especially what's happening to America. We need fighters and warriors right now. And that's what I'm out here trying to do.
Yeah, let's jump off right now with the vice president pick that we're all wondering what Trump is going to do. I was quoted in the Hartford Courant a couple of weeks ago. A good friend of mine, Jamie Stevenson, first select woman, former first select woman of Darien, was on her team and Nikki Haley's team, that is. And, completely left of us, completely not accepted by the base. But I figured, you know what? She has a lot of administrative experience. If she could keep it together and kind of not go to war with Trump, maybe there could be a pick. It's not something we want, but it's almost like George Bush Sr. with Reagan. And sure enough, she comes out and hits him over the head a couple of days ago, saying he doesn't know his, from a hole in the ground about Ukraine. He calls her last night or yesterday, he calls her bird brain. So it's all over for Nikki being a vice president pick. But this is very important because people like to say we're right-wing extremists, we're homophobes, we're racist, we're this and we're that. And when we try to move towards the center with picks to balance our ticket, we hear all kinds of nonsense. Well, I reached out, I went public on this, and because I thought if you could people say, how do you make peace? Make peace in your party first with those of each side. And so she did what we knew she'd do, and she could not stop like DeSantis. We're recognizing that the Trump factor is not going to be stopped. It just isn't. Unless he's dead, he's going to be presidential, Republican pick. And so Nikki kind of, it was something that a lot of my friends said, Joe, don't do that. Don't go public with that. But I'm saying, listen, somebody on the base has to say, let's try to reach over. I did, and a few other people did, and we knew what it was going to be, but they cannot claim that we would not, those on the base of Trump, former Tea Party, former right-wingers, real right-wingers, would not reach across and try to do business for the people. And Nikki just, she took it to him and he took it back to her.
Listen, I think Nikki Haley is a very capable leader. She's proven track record, and her recent comments. She's in a race. I believe no one gets into that race, including our friend Chris Christie there, who thinks he has a shot. None of them have a shot. Not one of the candidates that's running in anyone. I mean, Tim Scott's my favorite out of any of them, but the rest of them are really people that they know darn well. They're just trying to build another opportunity, Mike Pence included. No one is going to beat Donald Trump for the presidential candidate for the Republican ticket in 2024. Let's stop the nonsense and wasting of money. Imagine if a party united itself and said, okay, we understand this is something bigger than us. Why don't we choose to get on it and let's work out our differences? 6 out of 10 things, we can become partners now, right? If we can agree on a few things. But the fact of the matter is, this is self-grandering. This is a self-absorbed political machine that they love to build their own little like worlds of I'm important. I can change the world. Folks, there's not one candidate. DeSantis himself can't change America. Donald Trump's the only one that can step in right now. And I'm pretty confident like you, Joe, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is right here for those listening across the country in Connecticut, Bridgeport, Connecticut, corruption capital of the world politically. Many elections were stolen there because for Governor Tom Foley years ago in 14 and 10, they kept the polling places open, got a court order because the people in the inner city couldn't wake up or this or that until 10 o'clock at night. And then our Republican candidates lose by 6,000 votes. 20,000 votes. Ridiculous. Well, it just happened again, this time last week in the Democrat mayor campaign. Joe Ganim, a former felon, becomes mayor again. And this time the on-camera videotape of operatives, Democrat operatives, stuffing ballots, all on camera. Everything we see in Denise D'Souza's 2,000 Mules is happening. And the video was released somehow by the police, from the police, which is another legal argument. Why did the police release this? The Democrats are angry. What do you mean? How much footage do we have in America like Denise D'Souza that shows thousands of people over and over, night after night, stuffing ballots, complete criminal activity, not legal. And so in the Secretary of State in Connecticut likes to say it's just a couple bad actors. That's all you need is a couple bad actors because Trump lost by 45,000 votes in 3 swing states. You only need a few bad actors over a period of time. So right here in the Constitution state, Chris Murphy, Governor Lamont, Senator Blumenthal, everybody wants to look the other way and pretend it's a few bad actors when you could see all night long ballots getting stuffed on videotape and gets leaked by someone in the police department because the police department would have kept a lid on it. So what are we talking about? We have no standing. This is the problem we have. We have no standing. Texas had no standing. This one, none of the information in 2020 came out because there was no standing. And the public doesn't understand what that means. It means you don't have the right to say, we were injured. No, no, no. Well, who does have standing? And so this is a really bad political move we see everywhere in the court system called standing. And it's really something that's undermined democracy. But Bridgeport, Connecticut, the Constitution state, we have got ballot harvesting, illegal voting right here, and it's going to get buried by the investigators for months and maybe a year before we ever find out what we already see on tape.
But listen, there's no doubt there's a lot of challenges ahead for cleaning this corruption that we've seen in this country. And, we could talk about the election fraud and some of those things, but, let's go down to the southern border. And what they're doing right now on the southern border is bringing in the next generation of illegal votes into this country. They are right in front of America's eyes, blatantly doing this, breaking the law. Supporting that in itself is a way to support fixing the votes of the future. They're doing it blatantly. And quite honestly, Joe, at the very least, I'm going to congratulate them because they're braver than most of the Republicans who are scared to step up and do the right thing. You see, I believe that the Republicans, they have the great message. They have a great plan. They have no execution. They don't know how to sell anything as a party across this country. That's why I've really lost up to this point. But Donald Trump, he shined a light on it, and he certainly isn't going away. And I think if we continue to talk about it, it's going to be a problem to get fixed.
What they're trying to do, is turn Texas blue because they're shipping them all over the country. But if they can get a base of enough people in Texas that are illegal, that vote, and now many of the states want to let them run for office as they broke the law. They're calling them refugees, political refugees. They're coming from everywhere. And so we saw this. It's really the fall of Rome. And it's occurring. But if they can turn Texas, they don't have to worry anymore about swing states. There's so many electoral college votes in Texas. They don't have to worry about Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania anymore. They can just take every presidential race all the time and never lose. And this is what we're looking at. The illegal immigration is basically COVID-2. It's a method of COVID where they can change election law, in this case by adding voters.
Unfortunately, there's so much that Tarrant County, Texas, for example, if you look at what happened down there, it almost went blue. That's the last stronghold in this country. We know these are great challenges. 2024 is going to really play out to really determine the future of this great country, where the political moves are taking place. You're right. They're down in Texas. They're in Florida. They're trying to take over those big states so they can actually keep dismantling the small states like Connecticut and the rest of them across this country. But we're not going to let it happen. And you know what? I think there's more Democrats, quite frankly, and Republicans, independents, unaffiliated, people coming together. A common sense American vote is what I'm going to see in 2024, my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because if you have a conscience, if you like fairness, if you're a football or baseball fan, and if you don't mind your team loses, right, and it's not a crooked ref, and there's instant replay, we can see it. Americans are fair, and they like games, and they like things played straight. And the more we see of this, and this is what Bridgeport is about here, right in the Constitution State, it just got caught. But it's happened everywhere, and it will happen again. And so we have to remember that no matter how many votes were played with, harvested, gathered together by Bill Gates and Zuckerberg's 400 million, no matter how much they increase it, because this is another issue. You were a state rep, and I like to beat this like a dead horse. The government's job is not to increase turnout. When I ran against John Larson for U.S. Congress, I was a sitting town council in West Hartford, and the district has 71,000 Republicans, and it has something like 170,000 Democrats. It's almost impossible to win. I would need a low turnout, and a turnout that didn't like to vote and participate. I don't need the government putting its foot on, we want to spread democracy so everybody votes. That's not your job. Publish where it is, when it is, and stay out of it. It's like the referee basically giving points up. And so even in a red state, don't let the government try to increase turnout. Let the people come out. They'll broadcast when the date is, where the pollings are, put it in a newspaper like they've done for 220 years, and put it out there. Here's where you show up. Here's where you vote. Here's the rules. Here's the candidates. That's all government should do. But by trying to automatic, like in Pennsylvania, increase it now, automatic voter rolls, you're on the voter rolls automatically, and then all of a sudden ballots are sent to everybody, wrong addresses. It just increases the numbers, increases the potential fraud.
Well, as a tradition in this country to take something that was intentionally or intended to be a fix to a problem and to exploit it, especially those in politics. We see it all the time. They're really crafty at this, and they'll exploit it for their own needs. And so the efforts to get more people to get into that voters booth is important, but it's not through this way. It's through education. It's back into the school systems, teaching young people how important, civics are in this country. But we don't see that because what we see is a dividing message, and what they want to is conquer and control this great country. And we just can't let it. We gotta stand up to this madness, and we are continuing to do that. And I know that God is on this journey, especially with me. And I'm just so pleased and honored to be ready and willing to fight in 2024 for the right things.
Well, that's the other thing. It's amazing to watch. We got Jesus behind me right over here in the picture. I see you wearing your cross. People say, well, what does policy making and government have to do with God? Mm-hmm. The Bible is nothing but policy making. It is all how to run your life. And people like to say, well, that was an old antiquated. The messages are very clear. And especially love your neighbor with the New Testament. Love everybody. Be fair. Don't sin. Basically, don't be greedy. Don't be egotistical. Don't try to seek power more than you need or should have. And so we see evil men. That's what I call them. You say men and women, but evil men, and the works of evil men and what they want. This is increasing, but it's showing itself like never before. And like just for instance, how the world's upside down. Hunter Biden is suing Giuliani today because Fox breaking news because Hunter said he looked at my emails and he's a hacker. Giuliani got a copy of the contents. He didn't hack the thing. So blatantly caught, prostitutes, Secret Service being paid through hookers, Biden, the father, paying for the hookers, every filthy, disgusting, crooked, evil, criminal activity is on the laptop, and the evil has the right to say, I'm going to sue you for letting everybody know. I mean, here's where we are. They have no shame. They actually have no conscience. It's lawfare. It's legalese. And we're really fighting a battle now. The good news is we have the Supreme Court. The bad news is we can't have every issue from local, state, and federal end up at the Supreme Court. October 1st, a couple of days from now, I can no longer, neither can you, wear your gun on your hip. Connecticut's had it since the beginning of the state. You can wear your gun on your hip. They removed that, so you have to now conceal your weapon. It's always been public. But look at this one. Listen to this one. right across the street from me in West Hartford Center last week. Just made the papers today. A man came out from one of the bars, was driving through, trying to hit some people. They jumped out of the way. He got out of his car, took a weapon, a gun, and pistol whipped one of the pedestrians, got in the car, took off for LA. If you were wearing a gun on your hip and someone tried to do that, they would think twice. So why do the police wear their guns on their hip? People say, well, you absolutely should show it. And I'm really for it. And it's been taken away in Connecticut. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits against it. But we're living in the times when if you don't show your weapon, you won't be able to keep people away from you. Then they ask you in the law to run to the furthest corner in your house if someone breaks in and keep running and hiding with your gun like a fool, rather than, you know what, you came in my house illegally, get out of the house and shoot the person. No, call 911 and let him kill you and your family first. So this is how ridiculous, like Hunter Biden suing Giuliani, and it's just an upside down world where they're like, oh, those are old fashioned ways, Joe. When you were young, you're an old man. Huh? This is common sense.
Right. What do we do? Well, we fight back, and we fight like heck, and we don't back down. And one of the things that's interesting is here in Connecticut, Sandy Hook took place. And, my good friend, Norm Pattis, who represented Alex Jones, that whole court case, we watched the most politicizing of this, this famously sad moment in history. I don't deny that it happened. I know that it was a lot of terrible things, but you watch the political players. And if you know who I'm talking about, the very lawyer who defended the group of Sandy Hook parents, well, he's going to be replacing Richard, Dick Blumenthal. Dick Blumenthal's son was on his team. This is a Chris Murphy business card right from Connecticut. You see, disarming the American people is a way to take control of us. They think by making us hide our guns, we're going to be a safer place. No, the reality is, is this really about fixing a problem, or is it about creating problems? See, the left side, the extreme left, and I'm not talking about the normal left, because there is a normal left in the world we need to address. The extreme left want to destroy America, and they want to disarm us, and they want to have us standing in that corner you mentioned by ourselves, unarmed, and to get attacked by an illegal criminal who comes through the border unattended to. This is the America they want. But what America do you want, Joe? Do you want that America? I don't.
No. And the problem is right now, people can't speak. You'll get doxxed. You'll get taken out. You open your mouth and you're not like us. We're speaking for a lot more than ever, people like ourselves, people that come out of the community that decide, you know what, we're prophets. We're telling you what the news isn't telling you. We're telling the other side the news doesn't want to tell you. We're telling you the side because guess what? People are afraid if they lose their job, if they say something, if they post something on social media, they get a visit from human resources, they're fired, they're living under a bridge in a box while their wife and kids are gone. People can't speak. Americans are less free today than they have ever been in this country, ever.
It's sad. And, I think fighting for that freedom should be the first priority, because the next generation is going to happen to be the responsible ones to protect us in our elderly years. The next generation that comes along, what are they going to deal with? They're going to deal with the crumbling pieces of this politically corrupted system. Try to make sense of it. Try to feed the people who are needy. Try to clothe the people that are needy. Try to welcome those people to this country. And at the same time, they want to take the controls like Second Amendment, First Amendment. It is an insane place. Joe, I turned the news off a while ago, the corporate media news. I haven't gone on to the corporate media news sites in a long time. I do read every article, anything I talk about, I will go and research. But what I found is when I turned that, TV off and all those media impressions that I was getting, man, am I healthier? Man, can I go into any room and talk to anybody? And by the way, I think we're more connected. We're more in aligned with even the people who we think we disagree with. Look at Ice Cube. What Ice Cube did with Tucker Carlson just 2 weeks ago, going on there and talking truth about really what happens in Hollywood. And now he's been silenced for standing up. These are the times we're in. And these are the times if Republicans can wake up, and I think Trump's team is doing this, get their heads out of their tuchuses and focus. We can take back America by working together, Joe. The other side's willing to. Believe me when I tell you, they want to fix this. I'm not talking about the extreme. The average, everyday people like us, they want to fix it.
Well, it's going to get down to, as you know, the swing states. It's going to get down to Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, maybe Nevada. Nevada was always in play. It just gets, I don't want to say gets robbed, but just amazing how it just keep losing it by nothing, just ridiculous.
Hmm.
But it's getting down to the swing states, and I've been trying to put pressure upstairs and pushing up to the people that are in charge to put every dime and every boot on the ground in the swing states and really shut down the cash for all of the other states. We don't need it for the presidential ticket. Problem is the RNC, the Republicans, the senators, the congressmen, they kind of want a whole big push so that they can get their candidates and we can get the House. At this point, keeping the House may be impossible. Keeping the Senate, we don't have it, and we may never get it. If we don't have control of the presidency, we have nothing. And we really need to focus and get everybody that's got boots to start doing one of those old things like we did on the Trump campaign, we did in the Tea Party years, where you go to the swing states, you stay in people's houses if you can't go to a hotel, you work and you try to find a way to work with the campaign, because the problem is the campaigns are like to insulate themselves from the workers. And they'll give you something to do, but that's really nothing to do. All the people in the RNC and even the Trump world are making millions and tens of millions of dollars to do data crunching, statistics, you name it, all the micro work that's done electronically by a handful of people. And all of that blood stays in the brain and it's not in the body. And if we're going to win this thing, we're going to have to win it in the swing states. Pennsylvania especially. This is why they're getting radicalized in your inner cities, because like they did in 2020. So look for next year for a lot more violence to come back out. So the inner cities are polarized, so no one wants to go in there for an election as a Republican and work those inner cities while they put plastic or paper up on the windows as they did in Pennsylvania, so you can't see the voter tally. So this is the problem. Or like with Kerry Lake, the machines go down half the time. There isn't a thing that the Democrats will not do, but it will be the swing states. And we need everybody from Trump world in the swing states physically. And we need all the money in the world on the ground to pay these people, to feed these people for at least 60 days before the election.
So perfect. So, here's the deal though, Joe. One of the things I think is that the swing states are important. Every state's important. Every person's important because of the energy, but it's also about where we put our money, right? So put your money where your mouth is and support those candidates that are going to get it. Don't listen to the national Republican, committees. Don't listen to the power speakers on the platforms that we watch. They're all great people. I think their hearts are in the right place, but they're a machine built on funding themselves. And that's what it comes down to. So you know what? Go out, be grassroots. And, I think as I travel this country, I was down in New York speaking right outside the city hall just last week with a great organization, a great group of individuals, young artists who are becoming politically active now, taking their music from the streets to the streets and talking about politics. And what a great opportunity. Right next to St. Paul's Cathedral. This is a beautiful time to be living in America because, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, America, this is the last battle for America's future. And we keep saying it every year. 2024, tattoo it on the back of your hand. Make sure you're looking at it, because if you don't get involved in 2024, you have no right to complain afterwards, because this is it. And there's no tomorrow if we lose 2024. That is a fact.
Yep, because they're locking up political opponents. They're convicting them. They're using lawfare. It's one-sided justice system. Like in Nazi Germany, I hate to say it, it kept creeping up on the Jews and creeping up, and little by little by little by little. In this case, it's not genocide or Holocaust, God forbid, but it's something that has to do with the fact that the law, Hitler did everything legal. They passed the laws legal. In this application in our country, you're seeing the laws are being twisted. They're being written so that they're, of course, don't compare things to Nazi Germany. Well, it is the legalese, the lawfare part, and the media part of Goebbels. Those things, the media twisted and the legal system twisted. Those two aspects of Nazi Germany here in our country right now, the way legalese, lawfare, and the journalism is so skewed. At some particular point, ideology, personal ideology, turns into physical effect. You went in a road race and you're warming up and you're going to win that Manchester road race. And I'm going to get out there and I'm going to run and then you get out there and you do it. You physically manifest that which you think. And so what are we as a country physically manifesting? What are we manifesting in this polarized? What is going to come of it? Nothing but more chaos and increased radicalism. Why? Because when something doesn't work and no one wants to go back to normal, because normal meant yesteryear, and yesteryear to them means racism. So you can't go back to normal that way. There is no normal in their future. It's only a more twisted, radical a perspective of what we once considered normal living.
But, you know, Joe, I'm going to go back and say that I think that's a minority of the actual people in this country, the minority that owns the media outlets, the minority that owns the powerful companies in this country, the minority that owns the influence of lobbyists in this country. But it's the majority of good Americans that are being spoken to. And I think what Donald Trump is doing right now is he is not just battling, this pretend.
Oh, I think we lost our guest, but he should be coming back. Looks like he hit a button to do volume or something and he went off. But I'll carry on the show. Kevin Allen, I hope you sign back on. So anyway, what Kevin and I have been discussing as you're listening and watching at home is the part of America that we're saying, what do we do? What do we do as the people? Can we win again? Can we ever win again? Can we ever get normal and objective where is reality the way, not the way we did like some kind of racist, homophobe past, but reality where this is this, that is that. And but if you're a Republican, that's how you're treated. If you're a Democrat, you get treated this way. They even know that we're being treated different ways. So how do we find that? How do we find that equal justice under the law, Kevin?
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm going to go out and talk to people, average, everyday people, which I've been doing. And I'm going to create an opportunity for people to understand, although we might be in different positions on some topics, we're also the same. We want to feed our kids. We want to clothe our children. We want to educate our children. We want to see our lives have quality. We want to have an America that offers the promise and the dream to those people that are seeking it. Reality should be brought to their attention because unfortunately this country can't offer that dream anymore. We can't afford to offer that dream. But what I'm going to do is go out there over the next, several months. I'm going to speak with my heart and I'm going to speak with God's courage. And I'm going to tell people about the beauty of loving God and letting Jesus in your life and how that potentially employed with your thoughts about this great country can fix America once and for all. See, uniting America is the biggest thing we should all be talking about. This division, that's their nonsense. I don't subscribe to it. I won't talk about it. I'm all about uniting America, and we can do it. We can win that battle, Joe. I'm confident of it.
Yeah, well, what ends up happening, I have the same feeling after years and years and years in policy making, politics, etc., fighting every battle you can think of. There's nowhere to turn but Jesus. There's nowhere to turn. Okay, you can say Judeo-Christian, like I told my Jewish friends, Jesus was a Jew, so get out of here, as far as I'm concerned. Right. But there's nowhere to turn but to Christ, actually, the cosmic Christ, and that beyond religion. And it's the New Testament is love. It's of love. And so, how do we find? When they say, how do we find the middle ground? How do we find love again? You could dislike something. That doesn't mean you have to hate it. I don't hate Joe Biden. I don't hate Democrats. Blumenthal, this one, when we think what they're doing is unconscionable, but I don't have a feeling of hate. But on the left, you see projected feelings of hate. I'm talking hate. It's like it's beyond we're crazy.
But you're only seeing bits and pieces of that, and you're highlighting on these corporate media outlets that want to promote that. The actual people in these communities that we talk about, that they hate and all this, there's a lot more love for fixing this country than there is about destroying this country. I don't care who you are. Go talk to the single mom in Hartford, Connecticut, where you're at. Or you go talk to the single parent who's fighting against a system that's corrupt. Go talk to a child or a child who's visiting their parent that's incarcerated for laws that are antiquated laws, and then sometimes the same laws that have been created by the same people in charge, and nothing gets better. They're figuring it out in these places. We got to help them figure it out, and we can help them battle.
Yeah. Well, another thing for people that are listening in red states, Connecticut, where we are, even Massachusetts, votes for, we've had governors and Republicans forever, and we would have had them still if we had any great candidates that knew what the hell they were doing running in Connecticut. Massachusetts, even if they're a little rhino, things aren't the way you think. People in blue states kind of like their government at state level to be Republican. They do. They get more ideological.
You don't lose a state to blue or red for the purposes of government. You lose it because lobbyists want to influence businesses in these states. Connecticut lost its influence because the lobbyist system, and I'm not banging up all the lobbyists, some beautiful lobbyists out there. They do beautiful work. They have good initiatives. But we know it's abused the system, and that system has now, that's the trickle-down effect when you allow that to happen. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, let's get into Ukraine. What we have, I don't know, we'll probably take another 5 or 6 minutes. Let's get to some
Sure.
international stuff, and not necessarily that Trump was right in all this because he was, but let's just stick to where we're going with this, with the money to Ukraine.
Hmm.
From what I'm getting on the ground, and am I hearing through other sources, Ukraine, the army, they're gone. They're done. Of course, we don't see or hear that anywhere. There's no Walter Cronkite reported with Dan Rather with a helmet on in Vietnam anymore. We're not on the ground to see anywhere, anybody where there's any battles because there isn't any battles. They're being wiped out. Russia has air control over everything, but we're being told that the army is strong and they're winning. At what
Hmm.
point does that become news cycle here over here in the
Yeah.
West?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, what we hear is what this administration wants to offer, and there's a lot of reasons, and I think speculation on why we're in this war. We can go down that long list. We all know the same laundry list of the Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine, Trump's involvement with Ukraine when he called, and how Biden reacted to Ukraine. Biden's own admission that he wouldn't hand the money over to Ukraine until this prosecutor was taken out. These are scary times because as much as we know it's dirty and secrets behind the closed doors or attempting the steel curtain, it is happening blatantly obvious. They want us to know that they can break the rules and they can do what they want. They're pilfering money. They're filtering money through the Ukraine to go and get dispersed. The CCP is involved. We know this is a dangerous world, right? So what do we do here in America? We just give 40 billion, more billions, more billions, and yet we have veterans sleeping on the streets in this country who are homeless. We have people that can't afford to feed their kids at night. We have education systems that don't have computers and technology to provide to the students. The same campaign promises, folks, you're going to hear in 2024 from everyone who's been in office, who's been failing, will give you the same crap. And you know what's going to happen today? We're going to get the same answers. Nothing. You know what? Ukraine shouldn't get a dime from us. Unfortunately, we should be taking care of America so we're strong enough to actually take care of Ukraine someday.
Raytheon and the military-industrial complex, pure and simple, they want to play war games. And since Trump wiped out the caliphate, the whole bit out over there, there's no more war games. North Korea made peace by walking over there. Kim Jong-un was like, holy smokes, he shut that down. And all of a sudden, China, he's pressured them with taxes and tariffs, and they got put in line. So he straightened out the world like that while he was under siege with all these phony investigations, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to play their games. Why?
That's
You
right.
got
That's
over
right.
$2 trillion a year going into the Defense Department. I'm not talking about the soldiers. The Defense Department, it's not auditable. There's no paper trail. We don't know where that money's going down in a hole. So forget about they just want to buy tanks and play games. It's a cash cow that's going somewhere, and there's an underground United Nations or whatever you want to call corporate money, $2 trillion for our Defense Department. Now that we've been rebuilding it already every year, and they don't even get audited. No one knows where that money is going. Never mind the extra you're talking about to Ukraine. Just on a military budget, it's got to be looked into. It needs to be audited big time. Inspector General, every nickel and every dime spent in the Defense Department. And this, again, not against soldiers, has nothing to do with love of country and military. It has to do with the money changers and people that are inside our Defense Department, the defense contractors. What's really going on? Because right now, that is the bottomless pit of cash that no one knows where it's going.
It's part of the machine. Joe, one of the biggest issues here is we talk a lot about the special, all these services that are needed for our people in our country. And we do need to take care of people. Government's role is to make sure it's people without excluding certain parties. And we see a trend right now excluding certain parties. If you're a Christian, you're being pushed to the side. We don't want to hear about that. We're going to take care of this. But in the world we live in, the saddest part about it is these same people who are victimized by a system of false promises are abused time after time, but they go out and support the same concepts, the same philosophies, because they're bought and paid for. Could you imagine? We took that 40 million, maybe, I don't know, the producer, you can count it up, 350 million people in America or something like that. Let's break it down. Everyone gets $1 million, folks. That much money is going, or even if it's 100,000. Could you imagine how we change the economy? If we actually, I'd rather see that than go to Ukraine. Let's put it back in the economy. Let's give everyone 100 grand, make the homeless people rock stars, and let's bring America back to the great place it could be.
Well, I think what will happen is Trump will win. There's no stopping him. He will win the
Of course.
presidency. We know
You
what
will.
they do. We know how they do it. We know how to cure it. And it's not going to be the same administration. Remember, he learned standing in that office building. He talks about when the banks were going to take his casinos and his whole empire, and he walked around for hours while they deliberated in the other room and wondered what was going to happen to his life. And they decided to let him be a figurehead and put controls on him. But he came back out a different man. He came back out with the world looking out on Fifth Avenue, he said, looking down at the people for hours, wondering what his life was all came to. Well, he's having that same reflective talk right now, facing 500 years in prison. And he's going to come back as a different man. What did he do when he came back? He got into television. He got into licensing his name, no longer buying the buildings the way he did. He found a better way to run and manage things the way he couldn't before because he carried too much. He's going through that now. And when he is elected president, he's going to pick the proper people to run the government and shut down the administrative state. This is going to be the intelligence community. I predict, like he did Space Force, he's going to create a new intelligence arm bureau.
And no one really realized how important this organization and the reasons behind it. Do you believe we're going to be seeing the flying saucers and the UFOs coming out too? I mean, that's the concept, because people thought when he was getting into that he was going to come out with the next generation of the the cyborgs were coming out to go run the country. I don't know. From my perspective, he knew exactly what he was doing because that's the next generation. Unfortunately, though, that left side controls that media, and it destroyed everything good that he was trying to bring out with Space Force.
Yeah, well, I think that Space Force was another way to for the military. Our war will be in space. They talked about on 60 Minutes, where the Chinese are looking at. We have deep satellites that control armed forces and
Of course,
jets, you name it. But I think the intelligence community is where we're going to see a new Space Force type of a department instead of Homeland Security, something that's going to oversee the intelligence communities, because you just can't get inside and rehabilitate them from the inside. You can't put somebody at the head of the FBI and find it. How do you go deep dive to find all those bad actors? You're going to need someone that has complete authority, that has Inspector General authority to go in, that has highly classified authority to go in to look at the DNI, to put the right people. They can find out how much spying, etc., may be going on and espionage within our own intelligence communities. Because if they have used these communities against Trump and Republicans, they surely may be using it against something else. This is the fear I have for the world, is that by a comedy of errors and mistakes and cover-ups and blackmail, etc., that things could really come to a bad head. And the intelligence community needs to be reined in, and they can't do it themselves. Look for a Space Force type department being created by Trump when he is elected. There's no stopping him. He will be president, or our country and the world will be going through something none of us want to talk about, because Biden's mistakes are leading us down a road of partition where mistakes will happen. One nuclear warhead, one nuclear reactor goes off, one bad thing happened, and it's World War III. And that's really not pretend. That's real.
I'm going to say it, and I know we're getting short here to the end here. I appreciate coming on, but God has answers for this, and I if the people that are listening to the show, there's a reason why we're fighting and why Joe and I talk so loud about these topics, and really the reason is because this is about saving America, but saving America is salvation. It's saving us as a human race, because we really need to do this, guys. This is so important to America right now. And I tell everyone out there, just go and, if you don't pray, go and meditate on it. And eventually you're going to find your way to some answers that are going to be coming to you from a very higher power, not from your TV channels that you watch your news channels on. You're going to get it from the right answers. You're going to have the right inspiration and the right impact. And Joe, I appreciate you having me on, because talking about all these different topics is important. And it's not what we're allowed to do anymore at the coffee shop, right? Like you said,
Right.
We've been silenced. We need to talk about the tough conversations again and be brave and respectful. Respect is a big word, folks. Don't be disrespectful to the person you disagree with. Embrace that person. Defend your position. Do it respectfully, and be willing to walk away smiling, even in an argument that you might have lost, or at least they think they've won.
Well, that's the other thing about policymaking. We have to leave room for God. Well, we've pushed God right out of the subject, and the hierarchies, I'll call them that. You can call them angels, saints, whatever you like, or darker forces too. But the reality is, our lives are made up of that, and not everything is going to go easy for all of us. We have challenges. We have to grow. We have personal karma, personal destiny, and we have to leave room for that. Well, the society that's trying to be made by the left doesn't want to have room for that. Everyone's equal. It's communism. Everything is equal. You have this job. You do this. You do this. There's no room for error, for growth, and then prisoners for criminal activity can get out. Free people that are good are put in jail or indicted. And so we're looking at an upside down of law, cause and effect. So God, which is cause and effect, is part of this under any denomination, however you want to worship. But we need room for God in our policy making. And they have made, and since they removed God, we have gone down the road of perdition in the last 50 years.
Well, God's on a comeback unlike anything I think we've seen in history. I can speak to it. And Joe, you and I haven't chatted. My journey, my testimony that I actually now get the honor to go travel around and speak at and speak about has all been God has inspired me to actually do what I've been doing, which is to fight for the right reasons and forgive the sinners, like welcome the sinner. Listen, Joe Biden can come on to my set anytime, sit next to me. I'm going to love him like the sinner he is, but I'm not going to agree with his policies. I'm not going to want to be hanging out with him on vacation. And I'm certainly not going to let him hug my daughter. But I will tell you what I will do is I'm going to work really hard to break those lines and those barriers down. And I think that's what the American people want. We don't see it out of our politicians. Unfortunately, it's going to take people like you and I. Let's go out and fight this war for America and win it in 2024. And yes, Donald Trump will be president in 2024.
On that note, I got to say thanks for being on. And folks listening, thank you for having me as your host today. Mark will be back. Oh, I'm not sure which day, but it was really good to connect with Kevin Allen again from Connecticut. You want to put out your website out there or push it?
Listen, go on if you want to go The Kevin Allen Show, it's ALAN, and you can find us on any platform. It's www.thekevinallenshow.com. You can check us out. We're going to be announcing some huge things. We're doing some tours across the country using music, motivational speakers, and some political sprinkled in to spread the word of hope and change in this country once and for all. I'm so honored to be on your show today. Thank you, Joe, for having me. And everyone just have a God bless day.
Thanks for being here. Folks, take care. God bless you all, and God bless America.